Hi, Mike Kennedy with you. Uh, I watched an hour presentation on Latter-day Saints and Mormonism from a Christian perspective. And what struck me is how similar the creation of uh, Mormonism, or the Book of Mormon, is to Islam and the Quran. Those two religions, we're going to be comparing them to Christianity. And why is that a valid comparison that we can do? Because Islam, the Quran, uh, Mormonism, and the Book of Mormon claim to be based on the Bible. They claim to be that same religion with this new revelation. So we'll look at that and see. Now we have our three prophets. We have Jesus, we have Muhammad, and we have Joseph Smith, or the prophet for the Book of Mormon. So there's a contextual critical tool that this Dr. J. Smith goes into, where he talks about these 3 points that can use to look at, he's usually looking at the Quran, but it could also be applied to the Book of Mormon too. But the three things he uses kind of for a discussion point is the man, the book, and the city. He usually says city, but we could put that into place. And the man, we could change that to person if we wanted to talk about a religion primarily being found by a woman. But so okay, we have these people. They have this new revelation supposedly, and again, it can't be their Mormonism and Islam both claim to be the final revelation of and in tune with the Bible that says it's the final revelation. So you get into a problem right there really quickly. If you look at the Book of Mormon and the Quran, you find out that while the characters may have the same name, and I'm saying that even though Muslims use different names, but if they were to translate those and tell us which persons they were, they would, one of them would be Jesus and different things like that. So what we find is a marked difference between who the Bible says they are and who the Quran and the Book of Mormon says they are. If we look at the place of the city, we can go to Jerusalem for the Christian idea. We have records in the Bible saying that the how old Jerusalem has to be, for the story to be valid or whatever. But we can go to Jerusalem. We can find archaeological facts based on evidence, pottery, different things that can be carbon dated to, and all this stuff. So we know that Jerusalem has been inhabited for 5,000 years. Indeed, Jerusalem's built, there's like layers of different civilization, and we would tend to say, oh, Jerusalem, that's a Jewish city, or whatever. And it was a city long before the Israelites will come on the scene. It's that old. And we go to the place or the city in Islam, and we find out it's Mecca. Well, we immediately run into major problems because even though there's been extensive digging at Mecca, not a shred of archaeological evidence has been put forward to say that Mecca is the ancient city that the Quran claims it is. Indeed, some other people will say from research that if Muhammad existed, he was actually in the city called Petra, which is further north. And Petra is mentioned in records we have from those periods, trade routes and things like that. Early mosques all point towards Petra, and at one point they switch and they point towards Mecca, Petra, then Mecca, and we, that and other things gives us some evidence for the idea that the holy city for Islam was changed, and it was changed for political reasons. But that aside, Jerusalem, you can see, is an old city. Mecca, you have no evidence that it's a ancient city. It's not on maps. It's not in people's trades routes. So it's like it didn't even exist in ancient times, because it did. Now we go to the Book of Mormon. And again, if we look at the characters in the Bible, they're sort of similar, but they're extremely different. In the Book of Mormon, what their church believes is that Jesus wasn't actually Jesus. He was Michael the Archangel in disguise. And so again, we have this major deviation from the book. They're not standing alone saying, oh no, this is what we believe, this is what happened. They're basing this, just like the Quran is, on this is an extension of Christianity. This is based on that. And so, it's like having that older thing gives them more credibility in certain ways for certain people. So when we go over to the idea of the place or the city with Mormonism and the Book of Mormon, we find that it talks about a much later civilization, and in North America, in the United States, of this huge population and these cultures and cities. And we have absolutely no archaeological evidence, again, that any of these existed. There's a battle that's portrayed in the Book of Mormon where there's like 1 million people who died. It's like, well, if they had an army of 1 million people, their culture would have to be pretty big, because the women and children aren't being counted in this battle, and but the enormity of what they said was happening in North America, again, can't be verified at all with any archaeological evidence. And the Book of Mormon has, references many cities, again, that don't exist anywhere, and even represents, has maps, a continent or whatever, and that continent doesn't match anything in the real world. So you have the document becomes very suspect. That's all we're talking about here. Is a document reasonable, or is it suspect? Well, if this whole idea of the place, the cities, and the continent are wrong, then we can say that this document isn't really that reliable. And there's not really an answer that's given by the group of people that use this Book of Mormon. They just kind of accept it, or they haven't studied it and thought about it. Again, similar with the Quran. People who believe the Quran tend to be in countries where there's a lot less access to other information. It's illegal to leave Islam and say become a Jew or a Christian. In some Islamic countries, the punishment is the death sentence. So it sounds reasonable to me if we have, A, B, and C. We have A, the Christian Bible. B and C are the Book of Mormon and the Quran, B and C say they are validated in A, but B and C contradict A. So therefore, someone has to be wrong. And again, this doesn't have to be who's right and wrong, what's real and isn't. It's just a contextual criticism that they say they agree with something and they don't really agree with it at all. There's major deviations in the people, even though they might use the same names, who they are, what they did, what their nature was. We find that same thing with both Islam and the Book of Mormon. And just to wrap up this idea of the final revelation, Christians believe that Jesus Christ was the final revelation of the Father. And the Bible's the final revelation. Well, then you have the Book of Islam saying, well, no, I'm the final revelation, and I agree with that other book. They don't. And then you have the same thing with the Quran. The Book of Mormon saying, oh, this is this new information that the Bible's about the old world, and this is about the new world. But again, there's too many conflicts of points of disagreement between the Book of Mormon and the Bible. So, and then the city, Jerusalem's old. You can go to Bethlehem. You can find all these places still from 2,000 years ago, and they've been in existence before that. And the Book of Mormon, you go to Mecca. It's a fairly young city as far as ancient cities are concerned. And then the Book of Mormon, there's this huge civilization that left nothing behind to give evidence that they ever existed. And I got to say too, there's some racial overtones in the Book of Mormon that you can read about, and it's disturbing. And this has been brought up by other people before too, so I won't go into it, but it exists there. And so based on this argument, because the Bible doesn't reference these other books, and these other books reference the Bible, we can say, now, the Bible could be true or not true, but it's pretty clear that these two documents are not true because they claim to agree with something they don't. And that's just like too big an error to overcome to give validity to the Book of Mormon or to the Quran. Bye.